Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare हरिनाम संकीर्तन यज्ञ की, जगत गुरु शिला प्रभुपाद की, ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय, ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय, ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय, नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया, भगवत्युत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। We reading from Canto 5, Chapter 18, verse number 22. Mad praptaye jesha sura suradayas tapyanta ugram tapa endriya dhiya rite bhavat pad parayanan namam vindantya aham twadridaya yatojita. Mat praptaye jesha sura suradayas tapyanta ugram tapa indriya diha rite bhavat pada parayana namam vindantyaham twadridaya yatojita. Mat praptaye jesha sura suradayas Tapyanta ugram tapa endriya diha. Rite bhavat pada parayanam namam. Vindante am tvad-hridaya yatojita. Matprapte jesha sura suradaya. Tapyanta ugram tapa endriya diha. Rite bhavat pada parayanam namam. Vindante aham tvad-hridaya yatojita.
Matprapte jesha sura suradayas.
Matprapte jesha sura suradayas.
Tapyanta ugram tapa indriye diha.
Tapyanta ugram tapa endriye diya.
Rite bhavat pad parayanam namam.
Rite bhavat pad parayanam namam.
Vindante aham tad hridaya yatojita.
Vindante aham tvad-hridaya yatojita.
Matprapte jesha sura suradayas.
Matprapte jesha sura suradayas.
Tapyenta ugram tapa endriya diha.
Tapyanta ugram tapa endriya diya.
Rite bhavat pada parayana namam.
Rite bhavat pad parayanam namam.
Vidyanti aham tvad-hridaya yatojita.
Vindante aham tvad-hridaya yatojita. Matprapte jesha sura suradayas. Tapyanta ugram tapa endriye diya. Rite bhavat pad parayanam namam. Vindante aham tvad-hridaya yatojita. Matprapte jesha sura suradayas. Tapyanta ugram tapa endriye diya. Rite bhavat pada parayanam namam. Vindanti am tvad-hridaya yatojita. What meanings? Mat prapte, to obtain my mercy. Aja, Lord Brahma. Isha, Lord Shiva. Sura, the other demigods, headed by King Indra, Chandra and Varuna. Asura Adaya, as well as the demons. Tapyante, undergo. Ugram, severe. Tapaha, austerity. Indriya Diha, whose minds are absorbed in thoughts of superior sense gratification. Rite, unless. Bhavat Pad Parayanat, one who is solely, wholly and solely engaged in the service of the Supreme Lord's lotus feet. Na, not, mam, may, vindati, obtain, aham, I, tvat, in you, hridaya, whose hearts, yataha, therefore, ajita, O unconquerable one. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Jai Srila Prabhupada. Translation: O Supreme Unconquerable Lord, when they become absorbed in thoughts of material enjoyment, Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, as well as other demigods and demons, undergo severe penances and austerities to receive my benedictions. But I do not favor anyone, however great he may be, unless he is always engaged in the service of your lotus feet. Because I always keep you within my heart, I cannot favor anyone but a devotee. Purport: In this verse, the goddess of fortune Lakshmi Devi clearly states that she does not bestow her favor on any materialistic person. Although sometimes a materialist becomes very opulent in the eye of another materialist, such opulence is bestowed upon him by the goddess Durga Devi, a material expansion of the goddess of fortune, not by Lakshmi Devi herself. Those who desire material wealth worship Durga Devi with the following mantra: Dhanam Dehi, Rupam Dehi, Rupvati Bharyam Dehi. O worshipable Mother Durga Devi, please give me wealth, strength, fame, a good wife, and so on. By pleasing Goddess Durga, one can obtain such benefits, but since they are temporary, they result only in Maya Sukh, illusory happiness. As stated by Prahlad Maharaj, Maya Sukhaya Baram Udvahato Vimudan. Those who work very hard for material benefits are Vimudas, foolish rascals, because such happiness will not endure. On the other hand, devotees like Prahlad and Dhruva Maharaj achieved extraordinary material opulences, but such opulences were not Maya Sukha. When a devotee acquires unparalleled opulences, they are direct gifts of the goddess of fortune who resides in the heart of Narayan. The material opulences a person obtains by offering prayers to the goddess Durga are temporary. As described in Bhagavad Gita 7.23, Antavattu phalam tesham tad bhavati alpamedasam. Men of meager intelligence desire temporary happiness. We have actually seen that one of the disciples of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur wanted to enjoy the property of his spiritual master. And the spiritual master, being merciful towards him, gave him the temporary property, but not the power to preach the cult of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu all over the world. That special mercy of the power to preach is given to a devotee who does not want anything material from his spiritual master, but wants only to serve him. The story of the demon Ravana illustrates this point. Although Ravana tried to abduct the goddess of fortune Sita Devi from the custody of Lord Ramchandra, he could not possibly do so. The Sita Devi he forcibly took with him was not the original Sita Devi, but an expansion of Maya or Durga Devi. As a result, instead of winning the favor of real goddess of fortune, Ravana and his whole family were vanquished by the power of Durga Devi. Shrishti Sthiti Pralaya Sadhana Shaktir Eka. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Amcha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Agana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamsha Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gaurvani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyate Deshitarine Vancha Kalpataro Bhishya Kripa Sindhu Bhevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gaura Tushe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim Yat kripatam ham vande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Hare Krishna. So in this chapter we were discussing, or in the recent verses we were discussing the prayers of Lakshmi Devi, that how she is offering different prayers to Kamadev, who is the incarnation of the Lord, in that area, in that Ketumala Varsha. And here we see in the series of consecutive verses, Lakshmi Devi is speaking about the importance of rendering pure devotional service. So in the previous verse also we saw how elaborately we discussed that if someone worships the Supreme Lord but he has a material desire. So there in the previous verse it's mentioned if a woman has a material desire and she worships the Lord. But we understand it's applicable for all of us that someone who worships the Lord with a material desire, then ultimately he ends up becoming broken-hearted, or he is not satisfied with that. Because all that is just temporary. And that's why in the previous verse she is offering prayer that why should someone worship the Lord with some desire? Because Lord is Kamadev, anyways he knows whatever the desires of a living entity are there and he'll bestow whatever is needed. So why not offer the Lord, or why not worship the Lord in pure devotional service? And here also she is condemning these people, or in this verse also we see that Lakshmi Devi is condemning those people who worship her not for obtaining service of the Lord but just to receive her favor, or just for some material motives who worship her. So that's what in this verse is mentioned. Mat prapte jesha sura suradayas. Mat prapte means she is saying to obtain my mercy. And here she is telling about the different classes of people who worship her just to obtain his mercy. And tapyanta ugram tapa indriya dhiya. Tapyanta ugram means it's not easy. For that also to receive the mercy of Lakshmi Devi is also very difficult. For that these people, they do lots of austerities, lots of penances. And here two classes of people are mentioned. One is the Sura and another is the Asura. So in the Chaitanya Charitamrita this verse comes, Vishnu Bhakta Smrito Deva Asuras Tad Viparyaya, where it says that there are two classes of living entities in this world. Or there are two kinds of people in this world. One who worships the Lord Vishnu, or one who is dharmic, one who follows the scriptures, they are called as Sura. And those who are against the worship of the Lord, those who are atheist, or those who don't believe in the authority of the Supreme Lord, they are called as Asura. But here one very interesting thing that is mentioned is, be it dharmic people, be it people who are worshipping the Lord, who actually follow the Vedic scriptures, or be it the adharmic one, what to say about them, the demons. Anyone who goes mad after sense gratification, just trying to receive the favor of Lakshmi Devi without worshipping Narayan, so Lakshmi Devi does not bestow her favor on that. And here example is given of big Devi Devtas. That even mentioned that even sometimes Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, what to speak about other great demigods. Even they, when they sometimes get bewildered and worship Lakshmi Devi without the intention of engaging in pure devotional service, then Lakshmi Devi does not bestow their fortune on them. And what to speak about demons anyways? Demons anyways she is not going to bestow her fortune. As Prabhupada mentions in the purport also, even if she bestows her fortune, that is the play of Durga Devi, who tricks the person like that. But actual favor of goddess of fortune cannot be received by such people. And one very interesting thing we see, so here the example that is given, or the people that are mentioned, is Aja. Aja means Lord Brahma. Then Isha, Lord Shiva. Means it's very astonishing to understand that even great demigods, the greatest of the personalities, they also sometimes go mad after sense gratification. That is what is the word that is used here is Indriya Dhiya. That even their minds are sometimes absorbed in thoughts of sense gratification, and they also engage in such activities. I mean, they also engage in worship of Lakshmi Devi. They are dharmic people, they engage in worship, but just with a desire to enjoy. And one thing is very clear here, that everyone in this world, whoever it be it a dharmic person or be it a adharmic person, unless he is a pure devotee, or unless he is worshipping the Lord without any pure motive, with a pure motive, such a person tends to go towards sense gratification, or such a person is always illusioned in this world. And the reason is the senses that are there. As that verse says, Balvan Indriya Gramo Vidwansham Api Karshati. That the senses are so strong, and that's why it's mentioned that one should not be in a lonely place with even his own mother, wife and daughter. mother, sister, and daughter, not wife. So that means the senses are so strong that even the Vidwans, even the greatly highly learned person, he gets bewildered by this. And here we see in this example that even these great demigods, they also sometimes get bewildered. And that's why Rishabdev says that famous verse, Nunam pramatte kuruto vikarma yad indriya prite apdanoti. Where he says that these people who think that sense gratification is the only goal of life, or indriya priti, they just want to satisfy their senses and that is their aim of life. Just like we in the morning say our aim of life is Krishna Prem. So these people, they think their aim of life is sense gratification. So when people think like that, then they go mad after sense gratification, or then they engage in all kinds of vikarma or sinful activities just for getting some sense gratification or just to enjoy their senses. But that verse further says, Na sadhu manne yata atmanoyam asan api kleshada asadeha. He says that those people who are intelligent, they should not engage in these activities. They should know that this body is received because of our past misdeeds, because of our past karma. We have received this body and they should use it for a higher purpose. They should not waste their life just in these abominable sense gratification or these tendencies. So here in the purport also it's mentioned that how general people worship the Supreme Lord, or even the pious people, because if they are worshipping Lakshmi Devi, naturally they have some piety in them. They are not impious people. But then they worship the Lord with a desire, or they desire all this material wealth, worship and all these things. And that's why these prayers that are mentioned, Dhanam Dehi, Rupan Dehi, Rupati Bharyam Dehi. So this is a classic example which we were discussing also of a pious materialist. A person who is there, who is a pious person, who is following the scriptures, but then his goal is different. And for a devotee, the goal is completely different. Here we can see our philosophy is completely different from the philosophy from a point of pious materialists. Their goal is just to enjoy. They follow the scriptures, they'll follow the different activities, but ultimately they want this wealth, they want beauty, all these things they are desiring for. And our philosophy or our goal is just completely different. And that is why in our philosophy every day we sing, Na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim, kavitam va jagadish kamaya. Because we don't desire any of these things. A devotee doesn't desire to engage in any of these activities. He is not looking for wealth. He is not looking for beauty. He is not looking for name and fame. He just wants to engage in the Lord's service. But the pious people or so-called pious materialists who are there, they just want all these four things. Or they are just looking for these different things. And that's why here these people are condemned by Lakshmi Devi. That even the great demigods are condemned here, that even such people, when they just want my favor and they don't want to worship the Lord, then they just get cheated or they get bewildered by Durga Devi, who gives them various opulences, but ultimately they are never happy. Or who gives them that opulences that is mentioned here as Maya Sukh. Or they get this illusory happiness, and because of that they are bewildered of that path. Or because of that they are not able to engage in pure devotional service. And one very interesting example I read in this regard. So Lord also, it said that whatever activities we do, even for that matter a practicing devotee or someone who is practicing devotional service, even if he is not clean in his material activities or he is not very careful when he is engaging in material dealings, or if he does some material dealings which are improper, Lord is displeased even by that. So there is one very amazing example that comes in Chaitanya Charitamrita of a personality called as Gopinath Patnaik. So now this pastime comes when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was living in this Nilachala, he was living in Jagannath Puri. So we know for the last 18 years of his life, he lived in that place of Jagannath Puri, and he was completely engaged in the service of the Lord, or completely engaged in chanting and hearing about the Lord. Daytime he used to have darshan of the Lord Jagannath, he used to chant and dance before Lord Jagannath. And night time he used to spend with these personalities like Ramananda Raya and Swarup Damodar. So in that time when he was in that intense mood of separation, so that was the time when this pastime happened. So one day some devotees came to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It was described that every day some of the other devotees used to come to meet him, to speak with him and to have his association. And one fine day some people came to meet him and they told him that this personality who is there, Gopinath Patnaik, he has been condemned, or he has been condemned to death by the Bada Jana. Bada Jana means the son of the king, the eldest son of the king. So this person, he has been condemned to that and he has been put on the Changa. Now changa was a device that was used in that time. It was basically a raised platform that was used, and below that platform swords used to be there, upright swords used to be there, straight swords. So what they'll do is they'll put the person on that platform, they'll remove the platform, and the person will fall down on the upright swords. Basically he'll be cut to pieces. That's how people were condemned to that in that time. And now this personality was there, so people came and they told him that this personality has been condemned to death like that. Now, of course, if you don't know who Gopinath Patnaik is, then it might sound ordinary that this is an ordinary thing. But then he was a very, very great personality. He was the brother of Ramananda Rai and son of Bhavananda Rai. And the entire family who was there was a great devotees of Lord Chaitanya. In fact, that pastime comes previously when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he had met Bhavananda Rai and he had told him that you are the incarnation of Pandu. And your 5 sons, they are like the 5 Pandavas who are there. And one of those was Ramananda Rai, the eldest son. So all these personalities were great devotees. And one of them was this personality, Gopinath Patnaik. And now news comes to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that he is about to be condemned to death. And then he asked the reason that why is this happening? Or why is the king condemning him to death? Why is the king punishing him in this way? And then the devotees tell them the entire pastime. Basically, it's a long pastime where they tell them that he was engaged as a treasurer of the government. So all these people, all these 5 brothers who were there, they were working under the government of Maharaj Prataprutra. He was the king in that area. Ramananda Rai was working in the Godavari region. He was working as a minister, or he was serving the Lord Prataprutra as a minister earlier. Even this personality, Gopinath Patnaik, he was the finance treasurer of our area. And now what he did was, his duty was to collect taxes and pay it to the government. That was his duty. And he was the treasurer of this area called as Mala Jattya Dandapat. Basically some area in Odisha where he was the treasurer. And every time he used to collect taxes, his duty was to collect taxes, pay it to the king. But one time what happened is he's collected all the taxes, but he paid the amount he paid to the king was less. Or it's described that he paid a balance which was 2 lakh kanas less. Or 2 lakh kanas was still due from him. Basically this was the measurement they used to use, kanas or kaudis they call. So he paid some amount which was 2 lakh kanas less than what it was due for him, or what he should have paid. And now the king was not happy at this. So king inquired from him that where is the remaining money? I want the remaining money. And this person, Gopinath Patnaik, he says that I don't have it with me right now. It will take some time. I'll sell some of my goods and I'll get some money. Give me some time. And then he tells to the king that I have few horses who are there. These are very, very great horses, very amazing horses. And that time there was this thing of horse riding, that the princes used to ride the horses, ride the beautiful or the great horses who were there. So this person, he tells that I have some horses, your princes can take some of my horses and they can pay me something in return, and with that I'll be able to pay off this amount. So now king agrees to it. He sent some of his sons, or he sent one of his princes, one of his eldest son, to see the price of the horses, or to see how much the horses are worth. Now this prince goes, he meets Gopinath Patnaik, he sees the horses, but somehow he gives a very, very low price. Even though the horses were very great horses and they were worth a lot, but he gives a very, very low price of that. Or he says that a very, very low price he gives for them. And now Gopinath Patnaik was not happy at this. He was very, very angry when the prince said like this. So now a very, very funny thing was that the prince had some unusual habit. They call it idiosyncrasy. He had this habit that when he used to speak with people, he used to turn his neck. So always he'll be speaking and he'll be turning his leg like this, sometimes upward, sometimes like this. So that kind of habit he had. Now this Gopinath Patnaik, he became angry because he gave a less price. So he told to the prince that at least my horses don't turn their neck like this. Now this prince, he was very angry at this. Naturally he'll get angry. So then he goes back to the king. King, that means Prataprutra. So he goes back to King Prataprutra. He lies to him that Gopinath Patnaik is not willing to give any money, and we should put him on the changa and then extract money from him. So he didn't tell the king that he's planning to kill Gopinath Patnaik. He just told that we'll put him on the changa and we'll extract the money from him. King said, okay, whatever you want to do it to extract the money. And then again the prince comes back, he puts this Gopinath Patnaik on the changa and he's about to execute him, or he's about to kill him. That was his intention. And this was the time when this news, or when this entire thing reached Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now the most surprising thing in this entire pastime, we know that these were great personalities, they were devotees of Lord Chaitanya. But when Mahaprabhu heard all this, Mahaprabhu heard that all this has happened, his response was very different. He didn't say, or he didn't run after just to save his devotee, or he didn't send someone. He said, how then is the king at fault in punishing him? Gopinath Patnaik is not paying the money which is due for him. Then what is the wrong in this? King is doing whatever is needful. What is the wrong in this? The point that was in this we see, even though they were great devotees, but even though he embezzled the money, or he was not clean in his dealings, Lord was not at all happy with this. And of course, there's a great pastime that continues later. All the devotees come, they pray to the Lord to save him. And then the news comes that his brother has also been arrested. So there was another person there, brother Vaninath Rai, who again was a great devotee of Lord Chaitanya. Now he was also arrested. He was also put into prison. And many devotees come, they plead to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Mahaprabhu says, I cannot do anything. I am a sannyasi. I don't want to do or engage in these materialistic activities, or I don't want to go and beg in front of the king for this. And then he says, you pray to Lord Jagannath. If he wants to save him, he will do the needful. Or he will save if he wants, like that. And then of course, it's given that Lord inspires some person, Hari Chandan, who goes to the king, who tells him that the prince is about to execute that person, or execute Gopinath Patnaik. And then king stops the execution and it continues further. But the entire point in this was, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very particular in this, that if someone is working for the government and he steals or he embezzles some money, then what is the fault? The king's duty to punish him, or king's duty to extract that money for him. And why are you getting me involved? That was his reaction to that. So we see the point that I was trying to make is how people in this world, they try to execute money, or they try to engage in sinful activities just to get this money. But through this example, we can understand that even if some devotees sometimes think like that, okay, I'm doing this for the service of the Lord, let me extract some, or get some money through some illegal means, and I'll use it for the service of the Lord. But that is also condemned here. Or we can see that Lord or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not happy even with that. So one thing we can see through this entire pastime is that the dealing should be very clean. Whatever a devotee engages in, whatever things he does, being on the material level, whatever dealings he goes through, that should be very clean. Otherwise, he might think that he is doing some service for the Lord, but the Lord will get displeased, or Lord won't be happy by this service. And Lord was happy in that entire pastime when the messenger had come to inform Mahaprabhu all this had happened. Mahaprabhu asked to that messenger that what was the reaction of this person, Vaninath Rai, when he was arrested. And then messenger told that, okay, Gopinath Patnaik was arrested first, then Vaninath Rai was arrested. But when Vaninath Rai was arrested, he was completely fearless. He was just chanting the names of the Lord. He was fearlessly chanting and engaged in doing spiritual activities. He was not at all affected by it. And then in this entire activity, this was the thing that pleased Mahaprabhu. He was pleased at hearing the reaction of Vaninath Rai. But he was not pleased by the activity or by whatever Gopinath Patnaik did. So this thing, one thing that is very clear that we say in the Ishopanishad first verse also, Ishavasyam idam sarvam yat kincha jagatyam jagat tena taktena bhunjita ma grida kasya suddhanam. Where it's made very clear that everything ultimately is owned and controlled by the Lord. And one should only use that thing that belongs to him, that is set aside for his quota. But if just because of some jealousy, or just for any reason, that for that matter, just because of some greed, a person wants to get something which does not belong to him, or person acquires something which does not belong to him, then definitely he'll have to suffer the consequences. But the most importantly, Lord will also not be pleased by such activities. And we know many other pastimes. We know the pastime of Hariranya Majumdar and Govardhan Majumdar, what they used to do, the parent and uncle of Raghunath Das Goswami. And Mahaprabhu was not pleased at that. Means they were also devotees, but then Mahaprabhu said that they are not pure devotees, or they are not great devotees. So now question comes that why then people in this world want to receive so many benedictions? Or they know that this is temporary, they know all these things are temporary, but still the point is they go mad after sense gratification. The senses that are there, every day we sing in the prasadam prayers also, Jadendriya tahe kal. That these indriyas that are there, or the senses that are there, the dull senses that are there, they pull a person towards his own death or towards the path of degradation. And because of that, because of going mad after sense gratification, people engage in all these activities. People want to get some material prosperity. And that is why, that is the place where Durga Devi tricks them. Or Durga Devi tricks them by giving them some Maya Sukh, and these people, they get bewildered by it. So now another question that may be asked, okay, then soul's nature is Satchidanand. Soul is eternal, it's full of knowledge, it's full of bliss. Then why is a person so much engaged in these activities? Why does the person engaged in these material activities, or why does a person go mad after sense gratification? Because the nature of soul is eternal and all these things are temporary. Sense gratification is temporary. Then why a person goes mad after this? So I had a very, very nice example that comes in the Bhagavatam. This comes in the section where Krishna is teaching to Uddhava. So just like we know, the teachings of Bhagavad Gita was given by Krishna to Arjuna. And similarly, there are teachings called as Uddhav Gita, which Krishna speaks to Uddhava. And there he gives a very, very nice example. So Krishna tells to Uddhava, just like in this world, there are some great dancers who are there, people who dance very nicely. There are people who sing very nicely. And it's a natural tendency of a person to imitate them. Everyone does. In his childhood, we see someone dancing very nicely, someone singing very nicely, some movie stars, rock stars, and people start imitating them. People start imitating altogether their hairstyles, or whatever they do, people start imitating. Same way Krishna is telling to Uddhava, even though the soul is not affected or not the doer of these material activities, but the soul becomes captivated by this material mind and intelligence, and it also starts imitating its activities. Or it also starts engaging in all these materialistic activities, being captivated by the material mind and intelligence. And that is why the soul starts thinking that he is the enjoyer of this world, or the person starts thinking that he can enjoy this world, or he is meant for sense gratification, because he is covered by this material mind and intelligence. And there Krishna further explains that even though the entire material life that is there, whatever the soul is going through, whatever experience of sense gratification he has, if actually it's seen, it's all false. It's not true experience that is there. And he gives some examples. He gives the example of a tree being reflected in water. Just like a tree is being reflected in the water, and sometimes the water quivers. Water is moving and the tree also starts to shake or appears to shake. But that is false. That is not actually the thing. That is not actually, not tree is not quivering. And same way he gives the example of a spinning. Just like when a person goes on a merry-go-round and the earth, everything around him starts spinning. Or sometimes we also spin round and round, and then everything around us starts spinning. But if we start saying that this earth is spinning around us, so that is foolishness. That is our eyes which are spinning, and because of that we are experiencing it in that way. And same way Krishna tells to Uddhava that even though the soul's material life and all the experiences are false, they are not true. But still, because the person is mad after sense gratification, that's why he thinks that these are true. Because the person is covered by these tendencies, covered by the material mind and intelligence, he becomes illusioned, thinking that these are true or these are permanent, that is there. And that's why he says a very nice thing there, that material life, actually one should endeavor, or one should make a strong endeavor to stop these sense gratification activities. And he says this shloka, Arthe hi avidyamane pi samsprite na nivartate dhyayato vishayan asya swapne nartho gamayatha nartha gamoyatha. So he says that even though material life, even though all these sense gratificatory desires a person is engaging in, these are all false, they are not true. But still, for a person who engages or who meditates on these activities, who doesn't understand that these activities are false, for him these activities or the continuation of material life continues, or material life continues for him. He is not able to get free from this entanglement of material life. And he gives the example of swapne nartha gamo yatha. Just as the unpleasant experiences of a dream do not. A person knows that dream is all illusion, dream is all temporary, but sometimes it so happens when he gets a very, very unpleasant dream in his mind, that experience continues with him for a long time. Or he starts, even when he wakes up, he is fearful. Or it feels very, very fearful or agitated because of the dream. Same way a person, even though he has nothing to do with this material world and all these sense gratification, everything is temporary, but because of that too much meditation on sense gratification, these things or the material life continues for him. Because ultimately, as the Vedas say, that living entity has no connection with the material world. But because a person is stubbornly attached to sense gratification, material life continues for him. And there Prabhupada gives a very nice analogy that same way even for a devotee. He says that even for a devotee who starts practicing devotional service. So just like the dim reflection of a dream, as we gave the example, sometimes when the dream is there, that reflection of the dream continues even after the person wakes up. Or even after the person wakes up from dream, that reflection continues. Same way, even for a person who engages in devotional service, that dim reflection of sinful life continues for some time. Or the samskaras that are there within him, whatever activities he has done before coming to spiritual life, even they continue for some time. Or samskaras also haunt the person for a while. And that is why in the initial stages, person's mind is very troubled. Even though he wants to practice devotional service, he had this desire, but the samskaras keep on pulling him down again and again. And that is what Krishna tells to Uddhava, that is why a person has to be very, very strong in Krishna consciousness. Or basically, person has to be very determined in Krishna consciousness. A person has to tolerate all these tendencies, all these samskaras that are there, and has to continue his practice. Because it will take some time, just like the reflection of a dream takes some time to go away. These samskaras will also go away, but a person has to be very, very tolerant. And that's why in the Gita also Krishna says that an intelligent person, he knows that when senses come in object with sense gratification, that is just a cause of misery. That's what he says, yehi samsparsha jab hoga, dukkha yonaya evata, adya antavanta kaunteya, na teshu ramate buddha. That an intelligent man, he knows that all these objects, or whenever senses comes in contact with sense gratification, that leads to misery. And that is why he has to tolerate these urges, or he has to give up these urges. He should not engage in these activities of sense gratification, because that will only lead to miseries. So there Krishna, when he is telling all these things to Uddhava, he speaks something very, very high level. He speaks about what should be a nature of a devotee, or how should the devotee tolerate all these things that happen in his life, all the different desires he gets, how should he tolerate? And there he speaks this thing, or this comes in the verse, where he sees, or Krishna is telling Uddhava, that even though neglected, insulted, ridiculed, or envied by bad men, and then he says, even though repeatedly agitated by being beaten, tied up or deprived of one's occupation, spat upon or polluted with urine by the ignorant people, one who desires the highest goal in life should, in spite of all these difficulties, use his intelligence to keep himself safe on the spiritual platform. So he tells that even though all these things will be there, the person's samskaras will haunt them, other person around him, they will disturb him. He says that people around, they will neglect that person. Sometimes they'll insult that person, and that happens also. People speak so many things when someone starts practicing devotional service. They start ridiculing, making fun of that person. And here Krishna is telling to Arjuna that all these things, whatever it happens, and then he speaks even further that even if a person is getting beaten up, tied up, still a person should continue his practice of devotional service. He should not give up this practice of devotional service. He should be tolerant. In spite of all these difficulties, he should be fixed on his intellect, or fixed on his spiritual platform. And of course, even hearing this, it doesn't sound easy, or it's not at all easy. When actually these things come, it's very, very difficult to tolerate. And Uddhava also thought similarly. Uddhava also thought that how is this possible, or tell me how can we actually apply this? And there Krishna gives the example of a very, very great personality, or a great saint who was there, that comes with the name of Avanti Brahmana. And there he gives this example, and he tells his story that how he, in spite of all these things which we discussed, in spite of being beaten up, in spite of it being tied up, and all these things he went through, but still he continued his practice of devotional service, or he never gave his practice of devotional service. So that is a very, very long pastime, but just to cut it short, this Brahmana at one point in his life, he got the realization. He got the realization that everything else is temporary, and he took sannyas. He took sannyas, he left home, he gave up everything, and he started engaging in devotional service. And that was the time multiple things started happening with him, or multiple people started troubling him in various ways. So now a sannyasi who is there, he has very few possessions. He didn't have much possessions. He had a rod with him, he had a begging bowl with him, and some deer skin he used to carry. So it was described that when he used to go around as a sannyasi, even though he was highly realized within, even though he had great amount of realizations within himself, but externally he used to appear just like an old dirty beggar. Externally he was appearing like that. And because of that reason, many people would insult him, many people would dishonor him. It's described that some people, they'll take away his stick, some people will take away his begging bowl, some people will even, it said it will even take away his clothes also. Means his torn and ragged clothes, not new branded clothes or something. Even his torn, ragged clothes, and some people would steal that cloth. And they would disturb in various ways. Now, one is you steal the thing and you run away with it, or you take it away. So it was described, they would steal all these things and then they would show it to him. And they would tease him that you want it, or you want to take it. And then when the Brahmana would make an effort to take it, they will just throw it away, or they'll just hide it somewhere. So they'll just irritate him in different ways, try to agitate him various ways. And multiple things are given. Another thing when he's giving is when he'll be sitting on the banks of river and he'll be taking his food. So some people will come and sometimes pass urine in that food. It's very abominable thing, obnoxious. They'll pass urine in his food, they'll spat on his head, and various things they'll do just to agitate him, just to irritate him. And sometimes it's described that he had taken this Maun Vrata, he had taken that Vrata that he'll never speak. Sometimes people will force him to speak something. And when he'll not speak something, they'll start beating him. They'll start beating him, tying him, and sometimes calling him ugly names, that this person is a thief, he's making a show of religion. And they'll chain him and beat him and disturb him in various ways. But the amazing thing that was given here is that in spite of going through all these difficulties, in spite of going through all these different things, this person was not at all agitated, or this person was not at all affected. And he speaks a very famous shloka, which we all might have heard also. He speaks, Nayam jano me sukha dukkha hetur, na devatatma graha karma kalaha, mana param karana mamananti, samsar chakram parivartayedyat. So this Brahmana, or this sannyasi who was there, who underwent all these difficulties, or people troubled him in various ways in his life. In spite of going through all that, he was not at all disturbed. And then he's saying this. He's telling that Nayam jano me sukha dukkha hetur. That these jana, or these people, they are not the cause of my happiness or distress. They are not causing happiness or distress to me. Na devatatma graha karma kalaha. He's saying even the demigods, they are not cause of my unhappiness. Graha karma kala. He's saying the planets, my own karma, even time, none of this is the cause of my happiness and distress. And then he says, Mana param karanam anmananti. He says that it is the mind alone that causes happiness and distress. And that is the reason samsar chakram parivartayedyat. Because of the mind, the person keeps on rotating in this material life. A person keeps on going on again and again in this material life. So it's a very high level standard that is there, that even after going through all these difficulties, all these problems, this sannyasi who was very realized, he understood that it's my mind which is the cause of this. These people, and then he explains also one by one that how these people, they are not responsible for my happiness and distress. Demigods are not responsible for my happiness and distress. My karma is also not responsible. There is only one cause of my happiness and distress. That is my own mind, and of course the false ego that concocts. So that is the illusory concoction of this mind, and that is the reason I am suffering all these things, or that is the reason that is making me feel all these sufferings. So there this thing is explained that if the mind is brought under control, naturally the mind is the master of all senses, and mind has been controlling these senses. Mind has been controlling even the intelligence. But if somehow or the other person brings the mind under control, as Gita also says, then it becomes the best of the friends. And then a person can practice devotional service in whatever circumstances it may be. Whatever happens in his life, whatever ups and downs he goes through, but still he can practice devotional service, or he cannot be deviated from the path. Like the example of this Avanti Brahmana, who even after so many things happened in his life, he was not deviated from his path and he continued his practice. And then he says, finally, the very famous shloka, he says, Etam sa asthaya paratmanishtham adhyasitam purvatamer maharshibhi aham tarishyami durantaparam tamo mukundangri nisheva yeva. He says that whatever it is, I shall cross over this insurmountable ocean of science. Etam sa asthaya paratmanishtham. Paratmanishtham means by being firmly engaged in the service of the Lord, or by continuously being engaged in the lotus service of the lotus feet of the Lord, I shall cross over this ocean. And this is the path that has been given by previous acharyas. This is the correct path, and just by following in this path, I shall attain the perfection of my life, or I shall attain the highest perfection of my life. And this is the way Krishna explains to Uddhava that such a way or such a mood a person should have while practicing devotional service, while engaging in all these activities, just tolerating all these difficulties and fixing your intelligence or fixing the intelligence on the Supreme Lord, he should continue his practice of devotional service by completely subduing the mind. That is what we can understand through this pastime. And that is what here Lakshmi Ji says, or Lakshmi Ji says in these prayers, that she favors such a devotee of the Lord. A person who is engaged in the service of the Lord and who does not desire anything material, then she is the one who is favored by Lakshmi Ji. Because she is also Vaishnavi, she is also a great devotee of the Lord. And she doesn't favor those who come to her for sense gratification, who come to her for material desires. But she favors those people who worship her, or who worship the Supreme Lord without any motive, or who worship the Supreme Lord for their pleasure or for his pleasure. Such we can see from this pastime that how much strong they should be in Krishna consciousness, how much determined they should be in their practice. And then naturally they receive the favor of Lakshmi Devi. Then naturally they receive, what to speak about Lakshmi Devi, they receive the favor of the Supreme Lord himself. And when that is received, naturally everything else is received. And that's what the examples are given here, the examples of Prahlad Maharaj, Dhruva Maharaj, who achieved the favor of Lakshmi Ji or who received material opulences. But naturally they had achieved the mercy of the Supreme Lord. So that is why they were not bewildered when they received all those opulences, and rather they continued their devotional practice. So now one very important thing that is mentioned in this verse, or in the commentary, Acharya writes, that those people who give the worship of the Supreme Lord, or who give up the worship of the Supreme Lord, he says that they receive only dust, or they don't receive anything. He uses very strong words. He says that those people who don't worship the Supreme Lord, who just worship Lakshmi for some ulterior motives, they don't receive anything in life, or they don't receive any kind of benediction. They receive only dust. And he gives the reason that why such people also get benediction. Because sometimes that question may be asked that people are not worshipping Narayan, but still they are receiving that benediction, or still they are becoming materially wealthy, or still they are getting some or the other piety in their life, or some or the other wealth in their life. So he speaks that wealth seen with these persons who are not devotees, it's the result of two things. One, he speaks it's because of their karma. Because in the past they might have done some pious activity, they might have done some good activity, and that's why they are receiving the results. Or second, he says, it is given by the mercy of Durga or Maya Shakti. Only two reasons are there for a person who doesn't engage in devotional service, but still he is receiving material benedictions. Either because of his past karma, or either because Durga Devi has given him all that. And as it's given in this verse itself, whatever Durga Devi gives, that is a kind of cheating she does. She makes the person happy, she makes the person bewildered, but ultimately all these results that are received, or all these benedictions that are received, they are just temporary, or they are taken away one day. So that is what he says he explains in the purport, or he explains in the commentary, that all these wealth these karmis might receive, or people who don't worship the Supreme Lord might receive, that is just given by the mercy of Durga Devi or by their own karma. But that is not permanent. That is all temporary. And that is what Prabhupada gives the example here of multiple examples he gave. One, he gives the example of one disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And here he says, here Prabhupada is writing that he wanted to enjoy the property of his spiritual master. And this we all know that after Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur left, how that war happened in the Gauriya Math, or everyone wanted to acquire that property, or everyone wanted to be the owner of those buildings. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he was also merciful, he gave them away. But then, as Prabhupada writes here, He gave them the temporary property, but not the power to preach the cult of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu all over the world. And that has become quite evident. As it said in Chaitanya Charitamrita also, Krishna Shakti Vina Nahi Tar Parivartan. That only one who is blessed by the mercy of Krishna, only one who has received that benediction of Krishna, he can preach this cult throughout the world. No one else can. And that is why these people who were in the Gaudiya Math, even though they were fighting for property and they were given whatever they wanted, but still they couldn't do much when it comes to preaching, or still they couldn't do much to spread this mission of Krishna consciousness, or spread this cult of Chaitanya, of Lord Chaitanya. And that is why ultimately they got cheated, or they got cheated by those material benedictions. In one of the pastimes I was hearing in the Prabhupada Lilamrit only it comes, where because of the fight, it seems, because the fight in the Gaudiya Math was going on, just to get that money, or just to get the money for the law expenses, for the lawyers and others, they even sold the printing press that was installed by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. The printing press that was installed in the Gaudiya Math, that was there in the temple, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur wanted more and more books to get printed. But just because of fighting over material things, just because of fighting over property, they even sold that printing press. And that's how we see that they were actually cheated of the ultimate goal. They couldn't do much when it comes to preaching the mission, and they were just fought over some piety or some material things. And that's how they were cheated. Or that's what here he explains, that was not the real mercy of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, or they didn't receive the actual mercy of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Whereas when it comes to Srila Prabhupada himself, we know his example, that how even though he was away from all these things, he stayed away from all his god brothers, he didn't associate much with them, but still, because he was very much, or he accepted the instructions of his spiritual master as his life and soul, he was given that mercy, or he was given that power to preach this mission throughout the world, and he was able to do what none of them could do. And this is how he is writing here, that special mercy of that power to preach is given to a devotee who does not want anything material from his spiritual master, but wants only to serve him. And that is what the special power which Prabhupada himself has received. And here he is writing multiple other examples. Prabhupada is explaining, is giving the example of Ravana. And we have seen the example of Hiranyakashipu also. That how these people, they did lots of austerities, lots of tapasya, but just to receive some material benediction. They received lots of material benediction. Hiranyakashipu received that benediction that he won't die in the day, he won't die in the night, and so on and so forth. But all that was just temporary. In a matter of moments, Narasimha Dev came and took everything away. So this is how, when someone receives this Maya Sukha, someone receives something which is not being given by the Supreme Lord, then that is just taken away from him, or that is all temporary. Whereas on the other hand, when it comes to all these great devotees, like here it's given the example of Prahlad and Dhruv Maharaj, who are engaged in service of the Lord, then Lord personally takes care of them. And whatever benedictions they also received, or whatever mercy of the Lord, or whatever mercy of Lakshmi Devi they receive, that is permanent, that is never taken away from them. And we have many such examples. We have examples given here of Dhruv Maharaj, we have example of Prahlad Maharaj. We have an amazing example of Shivas Thakur. How when Mahaprabhu used to meet him, and he was a Grahastha. So Mahaprabhu met him, Mahaprabhu told him that you should do something for your family, you should work to maintain your family. And Shivas Thakur is telling, I don't feel like, or I don't want to do anything. I don't feel like doing anything else. And Mahaprabhu is asking him, then how will you maintain your family, or what will you do for your maintenance? And there Shivas Thakur just claps 3 times. And then Mahaprabhu is asking, what does this mean, or what is this supposed to mean? And there he is telling that I'll wait for one day, I'll fast for one day if nothing comes. I'll fast for another day, second day if nothing comes. And if third day also nothing comes, then I'll go and drown myself in the Ganges. And then Mahaprabhu is saying there that what is the need for you to do anything, or what is the need for you to work? And then he says that even if Lakshmi Devi sometimes become poverty stricken, of course this will never happen, but he's just saying that even if Lakshmi Devi sometimes become poverty stricken, you will never have any shortage of supplies, or your all supplies will be taken care. So this is how we see that those who engage in the service of the Lord, naturally those who please the Lord, Lakshmi Devi will naturally give them benedictions. Or Lakshmi Devi will also be pleased by them, because she is also a devotee of the Lord. And they will never have any shortage of anything. And many examples there we have the example of Shivas Thakur. We have the example of Megari, who engaged, or who left his profession and then he engaged in devotional service. He was also worried about his maintenance. Who will take care of my maintenance? How will my maintenance happen? And Narad Muni told that don't worry, Lord will take care of that. And we know how the Lord took care of his maintenance. So naturally, for a person who engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, all other things are taken care of. Naturally, he'll get whatever benediction is needed, or whatever favor of the Lakshmi ji is needed, he'll receive that favor. These examples, we had the example of Sudama also, how he was a poor Brahmana, and he went, his wife, he was living in that poverty-stricken state. His wife were there, his children were there, and it was said that they were so poor that they didn't even have proper food to eat. They were very, very thin. All of them were very thin because they didn't have proper food to eat, proper clothes to wear. And his wife was pushing him again and again that why don't you go and meet your friend? Or why don't you meet Krishna, who's your friend, who's your childhood friend? He's the king of Dwarka. He will definitely give you something. Or he's very, very merciful to the Brahmanas. Definitely he'll help you. But there also in that entire pastime we see that Sudama goes to meet Krishna. But internally he was thinking, why will I ask something for him? Or how can I ask something from him? He goes to meet him, he meets him, and all that thing happened. But he doesn't ask anything from him. Sudama didn't ask even anything, even though he was in that poverty-stricken condition, he didn't ask any benediction from the Lord. But then, as it's mentioned, Lord himself understands. So Lord knew what was going on. And when Sudama returns, he sees that his house was transformed into a palace. Or the same house, same poverty-stricken condition where he was living, that place was transformed into a great palace, and his wife was there in opulent clothes, and many, many servants were there serving his wife. And he became very, very grateful to the Lord, or he became very, very obliged to the Lord. That how merciful the Lord is, and even without asking, Lord gave me all this. So this is the thing that Lakshmi Devi is mentioning here, that I do not favor anyone, however great he may be, unless he is engaged in the service of your lotus feet. Because I keep you always within my heart, I cannot favor anyone but a devotee. So here it is pretty clear through all these examples that Lakshmi Devi will definitely favor that person who is engaged in the service of the Lord. And such a person need not ask anything. He need not go to the Lord and ask for something. Naturally, he will be favored, or she will be favored by Lakshmi Ji if he is engaged in pure devotional service, or if he is serving the Lord without any external desire. And we have another such example. So today is the disappearance day of Madhavendra Puri. So we have one pastime, we have one very, very amazing pastime even of Madhavendra Puri in this regard. So it's described that when he was going on his traveling tours, once he came to Vrindavan. He came to Vrindavan, he did the Govardhan Parikrama, and he stayed there for some time. So that time it's described that he used to go every day. His schedule will be that he'll do the Govardhan Parikrama, then he'll take bath in a place called as Govindakund, and then he'll sit and chant near a beautiful tree. There was some tree, it seems, there, and he used to sit and chant near that. So every day he'll do this schedule, and he won't ask for any madhukari. It said that he won't eat anything, he won't ask anyone for anything. Every day he'll do these activities, then he'll sit below that tree and he'll be engaged in his chanting and his spiritual activities. Completely engrossed or engaged in these activities. And then he had something, and I was hearing that he had something called as ayachaka vritti, which means that he had decided not to do madhukari. Something, yachna means if a person goes and begs something from other people, that is called as yachna. Or he goes and begs madhukari from other people. But Madhavendra Puri has something called as ayachaka vritti. He has taken the vrata that he won't beg anything from anyone. Whatever has to come, it will come on its own. And even if it doesn't come, he will be engaged in his service. So like that, he used to sit under a tree, he used to chant and do his spiritual activities, he'll do his Gayatri, he'll do his chanting, and he was completely engaged in all those activities. And one day while he was engaged in these activities, he was sitting near Govindakund. One young boy comes to him. And then this boy wakes him up in the sense that he was chanting, he was not sleeping. But this boy just touches him, tells him that I have brought a pot of milk for you. And Madhavendra Puri, when he sees that boy, he was surprised. He was feeling very, very attracted to the boy. He was naturally feeling very, very attracted to that boy, and that boy was also very, very beautiful. And Madhavendra Puri asked him that, who are you? Why have you come here? And then that boy tells him that my name is Gopal. And this also I was hearing, it had two meanings. One, of course, we know the meaning of Gopal. Go means cow, and Pal means ones who take care of the cow. Basically, I'm a milkman, I milk the cows. And another meaning was he was telling, I am Gopal or I am the Supreme Lord. So basically like that he tells to Madhavendra Puri that I am Gopal. And I have seen that many ladies, they come around in this area. Many women, they come around in this area. They go to this kund, they'll take out the water of this kund and they'll take it for various services. And all these ladies, they're regularly seeing you and they see that you are not engaged in any activity or you're not doing any madhukari. They are seeing that you are not eating anything, you are not begging anything for yourself, and you are just sitting and busy in your chanting activities or busy in your spiritual activities. And that is why these ladies, these women, they have sent me here. Or they have told me to come here and give you this pot of milk. And Madhavendra Puri, he accepts that pot of milk, he drinks it, and the boy goes away. And now what happens is when he drinks that pot of milk, it's described that his smaranam or his remembrance of the Lord increases. His ecstasy also increases little more. And then he continues with his spiritual activities. And that was the time is described. He was engaged, again after drinking, he was engaged in his chanting, he was engaged in his activities. And then after some time he dozed off or he fell asleep. Of course, this was again not the sleep of ours, like while we also chant while dozing. We also doze while chanting. His was a very, very transcendental thing that was there. So he fell asleep after some time, and that time in his dream, this same boy, he comes in that dream, and there he reveals his actual form. Basically, there he holds him by the hand, he takes him to a place, and he tells him that I am buried there, basically the deity that was buried there, and he reveals who he actually is. And that's how Madhavendra Puri understand that he was nothing but he was no one else than the Supreme Lord himself. But the Supreme Lord has personally come to give him that pot of milk. So this is how we see, or through this we can see that when it comes to devotee of the Lord, he need not ask anything for himself. If he is just engaged in the service of the Lord, naturally or automatically whatever is needed will be given to him. And here through this pastance we can clearly see is whatever was needed for them, that was naturally being bestowed by them. Because if they have pleased the Lord, as we say, Yasmin Tushte, Jagat Tushte, that just by pleasing the Lord, everyone is pleased, Lakshmi ji will also be pleased, and naturally a person will receive whatever is needful in his life. And that is why here Lakshmi ji is condemning those people who worship her for some material benediction, but they give up the service of the Supreme Lord. That these people are very, very foolish. They do not know that if they worship the Supreme Lord in pure way, without any desire, Lord will do whatever is needed for them, or Lord will give them whatever is needful. And that's why they are very, very foolish because they worship me without worshipping the Supreme Lord. And like Prabhupada gives the example of Ravana, who wanted to take Sita, or who wanted to enjoy Lakshmi without Narayan, or who wanted to enjoy Sita Devi without Lord Ram. So such people, they always get cheated. But at the same time, those who are engaged in pure devotional service, those who are engaged in service of the Lord just for his pleasure, such people, they are always being taken care of. Or whatever is needed, Lakshmi Devi bestows them whatever benediction is needed for them. So with this I would like to pass here. Hare Krishna.
Questions?
Naresh, thank you for the nice class. So you mentioned one point like the false enjoyment of the soul in this material world. So I was asking, the question was, is it like the false enjoyment or temporary enjoyment? Like whatever we are feeling here, it's like false or like...
So here in that context it's mentioned false only. And the examples are also giving similar. Like I gave two examples of a dream. Now dream, one we can say, of course, dream is temporary also, but dream does not have any real value. It's just illusion that is there. We might see something in the dream which might not be real, or which might be just something illusion. And same way when the dream ends, that thing also ends, or whatever we see also ends. And another example of the tree that is also given, just like we see the reflection of a tree in water. Now tree might appear to be moving, but that is not actually happening. That experience is false. Same way all these experiences of sense gratification, they are actually false. But because the soul is captivated by the mind and intelligence, the false ego makes it feel that this is real, and that is why the soul actually becomes entangled, or that is why we feel that this is actually real. But this experience of sense gratification, they are all false. They are not true. So that way it's explained. Temporary, of course, it's there, but they are also not true. They are just some illusion. They are like some illusion that is there. Lordships.
Lord Shiva.
Lord Shiva.
And also we are listening and we are seeing some other purpose. Srila Prabhupada glorified Lord Shiva is a Vaishnava attachment, he is not touched by any material. But he will have a same balance. How to understand?
So that is mentioned, Lord Shiva, we say Vaishnavayanam Yatha Shambhu, that he is the greatest of all devotees. But at the same time, Lord, he gives the difference, or he gives that analogy that if Lord is like, he gives the analogy of milk and curd. That Lord Shiva, he compares to curd, that it's a transformation of the Supreme Lord, but then he is not the Supreme Lord. Or he is in touch with the material modes of nature. And we have that pastime, famous pastime of Mohini Murti that is there. How Lord Shiva also becomes bewildered. But definitely there it's explained that Lord Shiva cannot become bewildered by anyone else. Lord Shiva cannot be bewildered by any illusory energy of this world or by any person of this world. But there in this pastime, because it was the energy of the Lord, or Lord Vishnu only comes in the form of Mohini Murti, then Lord Shiva also gets bewildered. So that it's explained that even though they are great, or they are very, very great personalities, they also sometimes get bewildered because of the illusory energy of the Lord. Or they also get in those tendencies. But that is just for a few phases. That does not continue for a long time like that. That is what my understanding.
This point is very, if we have any material desires, we cannot attract actual mercy of the spiritual. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur gave opinions for this disorder. That is not actual. Actual mercy from the spiritual master is preached to Krishna consciousness, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's master. So this point is very nice and very connected. So we should not have any material desires towards the spiritual master. We will not get any actual mercy that we preach Krishna consciousness. Another one, if anything is not belongs to us, and so we should not expect anything which is not belongs to us. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's past time. If it is not belongs to us, we should not accept anything. We should not hanker for that. We should not accept Lord. Lord will not be pleased for this.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for this wonderful lecture. Give many examples of devotees, how they are fully surrendered to Lord and they are not asking for anything. Like you gave example of Sudama, Srinivas, Acharya, and the Avanti Brahmana, they are fully absorbed in Krishna motion. So, but if our dealings are not good, then Mahaprabhu is not pleased. And when he don't shower his mercy, you gave example of Gopinath Patnaik, how his dealings were not pure. He was doing some illegal dealing. So if you also deal with, even though we called ourselves as devotee, and if our dealings are not good, that doesn't please Mahaprabhu. And if we don't get Mahaprabhu mercy, then it will be difficult for us. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for that. That was mentioned for me in that point. So one devotee should be always very clean while he is dealing with money or material things.
And in this world, people serve the senses because to serve the senses, people this world engaged in material activities. And people nice point, the sanskaras haunt the person for a while, and the sanskara has to be tolerated. Then this sanskara will go away. And you told that sanskara education leads to miseries. And if one is pure, if one is a pure devotee of the Lord, naturally he will be favored by that person.
Thank you for mentioning this. You mentioned that example of Avanti Brahmana. So one has to be very tolerant for all the insults incurred to him. And he mentioned that neither the karma nor any other factor is responsible for the agitation of the mind. Mind alone is the cause of happiness and distress. So one should be just very tolerant and constantly increasing the sense of
Hare Krishna. Same point I would like to mention. The person should be tolerant when practicing spiritual practices, even if he is beaten up. So example and the story told about the Brahmana. Brahmana was saying like these people are not the cause of my happiness and distress. Neither the demigods, my own body and the planets and my past life. But only the cause is our mind. Our mind tricks, and because of that we get this distress and happiness and joy. So even if someone can bring his mind under control, we can become successful in spiritual path. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you very much for the nice class. Very example. So, like you mentioned that the opulence of materialistic is given by Durga Devi and those are temporary and they can only lead to Maya Sukha. But the opulence of a devotee is given by Lakshmi Devi, which is real opulence. And Lakshmi Devi doesn't favor anybody who doesn't like to serve the Lord.
So since I'm too much new for devotional service, so this point hit me a lot. And even one takes up devotional service, the samskaras keep on pulling him down. But one needs to tolerate all the tendencies and continue Krishna working.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for this nice class. Even for devotees, this matters a lot that dealings should be clean. Lord is not pleased when our dealings are not clean. And we elaborated by the example of Gopinath Patnaik. And also, uninterrupted devotional service is very important to advance in devotional service. But then when we get affected by the externals, then it's very difficult. And we quoted Avanti Brahmana's example and elaborated nicely, helping us to understand that we should tolerate even when someone is we should tolerate and just continue practicing devotional service. Thanks.
मंत्र श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, श्री प्रभुपाद की।